Turning to politics now, the Democratic candidates are taking a sharper tone on the campaign trail as they prepare to face off in Thursday night's debate in Brooklyn. Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton are squaring off just days ahead of the primary in New York, a critical battleground for both candidates. Clinton is a former two-term senator from New York, and Sanders was born and raised in Brooklyn. A poll out Wednesday shows Sanders has cut slightly into Clinton's lead in the Empire State, but Clinton is still beating Sanders by double digits. Joining me now to talk more about this is our congressional correspondent, Nancy Cortez. Nancy, great to see you here in the studio.
Good to be with you, Elaine.
All right, so you've been following these candidates here on the Democratic side, and it's been interesting. We've seen Bernie Sanders take a bit of a more aggressive tone lately. Is that going to translate, you think, to the debate stage?
I think it will, because usually the way that these two candidates are talking to each other out on the trail only gets magnified when you're on that debate stage. And often they save some of their biggest criticisms for when they are on the debate stage, because they know that they're getting the most attention there. For Sanders, he needs to have some kind of big turnaround in this race fast. He's only got 6 days if he wants to not just beat Clinton, but beat her by enough that he really significantly cuts into her delegate lead. And that usually is best accomplished by going after your opponent hard, trying to cut down their reputation or their credibility, the kind of campaigning that in the past Sanders has stayed away from. But clearly, if you watch him on the campaign trail this week, he has concluded that he needs to do at least some of that if he's going to close the gap.
So that's what's at stake for him. What about for her? What's at stake for Hillary Clinton in New York?
Well, for Hillary Clinton, she really would like to for one, win a primary after losing a slew of them to Bernie Sanders, but also to sort of make it a decisive win where she can say, look, now after New York, the Sanders path to the nomination is all but non-existent. And so to do that, she needs to not just win, but win big. Plus, this is her home state. Yes, Bernie Sanders can say that he grew up in New York, but she represented the state far more recently than when he lived in New York. So it would be a bit embarrassing if she wasn't able to win by a significant margin.
Well, you look at the delegates, though, and Bernie Sanders is behind. I mean, what are they saying about his strategy here on that front?
Well, his campaign is trying to win over some superdelegates to try to convince them to switch sides, especially superdelegates from states where he won by overwhelming margins. These are party officials who aren't bound to which way their county or their precinct voted. They can choose whichever candidate they want. The challenge for Sanders, though, is he doesn't just need to change a few dozen minds. He needs to change hundreds of minds in order to catch up to Clinton.
Yeah, you talked about Hillary Clinton a moment ago needing a win. I mean, how much concern is there in the Clinton campaign about that fact? Because, you know, the narrative obviously has been on Bernie Sanders' side, at least with respect to the wins and having those wins in his column.
I think that they knew that this was going to be a bad stretch for her. That doesn't make it any easier to weather. It doesn't make the bad publicity any easier either. But she knew that there were going to be a series of caucuses in small states, and Bernie Sanders excels in caucuses, just like Barack Obama did in 2008, because caucuses reward the candidate who has the more enthusiastic supporters, people who are willing to come out for a couple of hours to stand there in caucus rather than, just to go vote very quickly in a primary. So they knew that he was going to have a great stretch, but it really is time, they realize, for her to sort of reestablish her dominance with a big win.
All right, Nancy Curtis here in studio. Great to have you with us.
Good to be with you.